Good evening, I'm Joel Flynn in Hong Kong. Welcome to View TV News. Coming up on tonight's show. One or two surprises from Carrie Lam. A day after she was criticised for more of the same, the incoming chief executive picks her executive councillors. One of those new members, though, appears to be singing a different tune after his appointment, especially over anti-subversion law Article 23. And a war of words. South Korea's president publicly criticises China for inaction over North Korea, echoing US sentiments over the last 2 days. Beijing says it couldn't have done more. Well, there were little surprises when Chief Executive-elect Carrie Lam unveiled her cabinet yesterday, but she has decided to mix it up now with some new blood in her Executive Council. The 6 new non-official members include former Monetary Authority Chief Joseph Yam, legislator and rural body Hyung Ki-kook, and Chairman Kenneth Lau. Lam's election campaign manager Bernard Chan is also appointed convener of the council. Regina Ip, meanwhile, makes a comeback. The New People Party chairman quit Exco last year to join the chief executive election. Former Civic Party member Ronnie Tong is the only pan-Democrat selected. That's a change from her predecessor C.Y. Leung, who didn't pick anyone with a Democratic background. Well, Tong, meanwhile, seems to have changed his tune, at least towards the controversial National Security Bill, Article 23. The newly appointed Exco member had co-founded the Basic Law Article 23 Concern Group in 2003 and opposed efforts to turn the bill into law. Now, though, he says it's something he's always supported.
We have to undertake consultations and make sure the public understand what the 7 crimes of Article 23 are about. At the very least, the legislation of the article should not challenge the core values of Hong Kong as protected by the Basic Law.
Well, for keen home buyers who applied for subsidised flats in Choi Hung and Mui Wo under the home ownership scheme, the ballot result is out. Those selected can buy their homes starting from August. The Housing Authority said it had received over 100,000 applications for the 2,108 flats on offer. About 12,000 of the applicants are living in public housing. The flats up for grabs fetched between $1.39 and $3.85 million. Mrs. Lai was one of the lucky ones who said she wanted to buy a home for her daughter.
I'm really happy we've been selected. This is really a surprise to us. We will have a big feast at a buffet restaurant to celebrate.
Now, some good news for those of us who can't live without our phones. Few people can. KMB is about to introduce a new brightly coloured bus which will feature, among other things, Wi-Fi. These 3 new models will break from KMB's previous tradition of gold paint, instead choosing red. The company says it hopes to reflect blood vessels carrying its passengers throughout Hong Kong. Apart from the Wi-Fi network, 12 USB chargers are also installed on each bus. They start their new journeys at the end of the month. South Korea's president has publicly called on China to do more on North Korea's nuclear and missile programs, a day after a similar statement from Washington. Speaking in an interview with Reuters, Moon Jae-in demanded that Beijing make stronger moves to rein in Pyongyang. He also demanded it lift measures taken against South Korean companies in retaliation for the country hosting a US anti-missile defense system. The last 2 days have seen a war of words emerge between China and the US over North Korea. China's foreign ministry earlier today repudiated the accusation that it hadn't done enough.
China has made unremitting efforts to solve the Korean nuclear issues, and from start to finish has taken proactive and constructive actions. I want to reiterate that after tension increased on Korean Peninsula, China proactively mediated the negotiation. We proposed the idea and listened to suggestions from both sides. China's opinions have gained the support of a growing number of countries.
Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump has told a rally in Iowa he wants a healthcare plan with heart. It comes a day before Republicans in the Senate release a bill expected to roll back on Obamacare expansion, a healthcare program for the poor. Donald Trump again fought for Democratic support for the bill during his Make America Great Again speech in Iowa. The Washington Post reported that the bill is set to repeal most of the taxes that pay for Obamacare, giving states a wider latitude to opt out of its regulations and eliminate federal funding for Planned Parenthood, which is an abortion services provider.
And by the way, if we had even a little Democrat support, just a little, like a couple of votes, you'd have everything. And you could give us a lot of votes, and we'd even be willing to change it and move it around and try and make it even better. It's going to have good heart, but even better. But again, they just want to stop. They just want to obstruct. A few votes, seriously, a few votes from the Democrats, it could be so easy and so beautiful.
A US official has told Congress that Russian hackers targeted the election systems in the country in 21 states during last year's presidential campaign. Testifying before the Senate Intelligence Committee, Jeanette Manfra said the Homeland Security Department has evidence that Russia had launched the cyber attacks, although she stopped short of naming which states had been pinpointed. She added there was no evidence that any ballots were manipulated in the hack, though. US intelligence agencies have concluded that Moscow meddled in the election to help Donald Trump win the leadership last November. The FBI, meanwhile, is treating the stabbing of a police officer at Michigan's Bishop Airport as an act of terrorism. Authorities said the suspect, Amor Fathouthi, yelled Allahu Akbar, or God is great, in Arabic before knifing Canadian officer Jeff Neville in the neck. Neville is in a stable condition and undergoing surgery. In a joint operation with the FBI, Canadian police arrested the 50-year-old suspect at his home and charged him with violence at an international airport. Following the assault, all passengers were forced to evacuate the area.
It's terrible. I mean, it's really sad. It's this is the world we live in. We were talking about on the way out, all these police cars lined up, all the lights going, and it's unfortunate. That's just, I don't know who did it, I don't know why they did it, but it's done.
To Mosul now, where Iraqi forces are making a final push against Islamic State militants there, hours after the group blew up a centuries-old mosque key to their identity. Columns of smoke were seen rising from Mosul's old district as Iraq's government troops focused on driving IS from the city. Earlier, the jihadists had reportedly blown up the Grand al-Nuri Mosque and its famous leaning minaret, which was where Islamic State's caliphate of northern Iraq and Syria was originally declared. The militant group, though, denied the attack, saying US forces were responsible. Iraqi officials and others fighting in the US-led coalition said the mosque's destruction amounted to an official acknowledgement of defeat.
The world knows what sort of enemy we're dealing with. It's an enemy with no humanity. It's an enemy who respects nobody, that is more than content to murder civilians in great numbers. What I would say is that's the sign, that's the evidence of a failing organisation. They are desperate, and they're increasingly resorting to desperate measures. They know the end is near.
OK, coming up next, a closer look at what's making headlines in business. Well, let's kick off with a quick look at the markets. We got off to a blistering start this morning here thanks to a positive sentiment from China's MSCI listing confirmation. That faded away, though, as the day went on, with the Hang Seng ultimately finishing flat, down less than 0.1% at 25,674 points. Insurance, investment and banking stocks all doing OK, though. One negative for energy shares, though, was the oil price fall, which dragged them down. Well, Hong Kong could be set for another huge IPO this year. China Tower has just named the banks it wants to lead a $10 billion listing here. It is an exciting development for the telecoms market. China International Capital Corp and Goldman Sachs will head up the IPO, subject to approval. The company, made up of China Unicom Hong Kong, China Mobile and China Telecom, was formed in October 2015 as a way of saving money on infrastructure and cutting management costs. The listing is highly anticipated and could spur investment from mainland tech money. A date still hasn't been set for the IPO. Well, a week on from Amazon's surprise announcement, it was buying Whole Foods, and analysts are still digesting the online powerhouse's move into bricks and mortar. While some have suggested, though, that it could shake up the Western food retail market, in China, Amazon's already on the back foot. Sami Varas has more.
Amazon may have scooped the M&A headlines by swallowing Whole Foods, but half a world away, Chinese tech giants are already digesting heavy bricks and mortar deals in the #1 online grocery market. Massive names like Alibaba have been ploughing money into offline physical stores for years, putting them at the forefront of the clicks and mortar revolution. Technology correspondent Kate Cadell is in Beijing.
Chinese tech firms have a bit of an advantage in that there's not a whole lot of big incumbent players in the retail space. So in a lot of ways, they're quite a bit ahead in terms of investing. We have companies like Alibaba who've invested $9.3 billion over the last couple of years in this enterprise. But at the same time, it's also because they have huge payment apps as well.
King of the Chinese payment apps, WeChat, with its eye-popping 930 million users. It's partnered up with mega online retailer JD.com, allowing customers to spend money at the click of a button using an app that almost the entire country uses every day. Amazon may be the industry leader in the US, but good luck to Jeff Bezos if he ever turns his attention to the world's #1 e-commerce market.
Well, meanwhile, while low oil prices might have hit energy stocks across the world today, Ford is betting they might be here to stay. After announcing it will move a big part of its production to China yesterday, many are now speculating whether this could mean other car makers follow suit. Not all of them, though, will necessarily be using fuel. Dan Epstein sent this report from Beijing.
Well, it's a move that makes a lot of sense for Ford financially. They already have a large operation in China. They have factories in Jiangxi, Hangzhou and Chongqing. And it's in Chongqing where they plan to move production of the Ford Focus. And it's at a time when sales in America of the smaller, more compact car have plummeted by 20%. And they say because of the infrastructure they already have in China, because of the comparably low cost of labor, they're going to save about $1 billion by moving this production